This is News Talk.
Hello there. So coming up this evening, 7:30, interview in studio with Rory Best, reflections on an eventful career with Ulster and Ireland. We also get into his approach to the Belfast trial as well. That is on the way from 7:30. Over in London, Johnny Sexton and Andy Farrell ran the media gauntlet. It was Six Nations launch day. So we'll bring you some of what Sexton and Farrell were saying on the football show between 9 and 10. Raphael Honigstein on the Bundesliga, including our wonder kid Haaland and his hat-trick in his debut. And of course there is live football this evening, including Manchester United against Burnley. We have Richie McCormack in studio as ever. Hello.
How are you, Joe?
And Kieran Cunningham, chief sports writer with the Irish Daily Star. Hello to you.
Hello, how are you?
We are just here. We have two television screens in front of us, and on the TV beneath us, the documentary, it's on mute, obviously, listeners, we wouldn't do that to you. Too Good to Go Down.
Joe.
Or ourselves. Too Good to Go Down. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth catching on BT Sport. Tommy Docherty trying to follow eventually in the footsteps of Matt Busby, and things not going terribly well. It's a good documentary, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of weeks ago. It's quite distracting because John Cooper Clarke keeps coming on and you just keep imagining his voice, his very distinctive voice. You don't know him, Richie knows him, but we were just explaining who he is too. Which
also got us talking about football documentaries you want to see. And you were saying interesting, there's one that they're trying to get done at the moment.
Even general sport documentaries, but football in particular. Now, this is a big year for them because, from an Irish point of view, because there's two being made around Italia 30th anniversary.
Only two?
Yeah, well, two that we know of. Andy Townsend is involved with one for Netflix, which is, he's the executive producer on, and Ross Whittaker, who made Katie Taylor and the Lowry documentary, and Anthony Foley, etc. He's doing one for RT that's going to be a two-part, I think. So I know he met David O'Leary a couple of weeks ago. He met Eamon Dunphy last week. Like he's met. They're both ones to be very interesting. But one, we're just talking about this because I know there's an attempt being made to make this one for a while. Is Liam Brady, the story of Liam Brady in Italy, and I hope it happens. I hope Liam can be a bit funny about looking back. He's not. He's one of those who thinks nostalgia is a disease, which it was considered to be up till the 19th century, which I keep telling you.
Yes.
And Liam doesn't like looking back, but it's an incredible story. Like Liverpool had won 2 European Cups in a row, and they wanted to sign him from Arsenal. And he turned them down to go to Juventus, which at a time when very, very few players went from the English leagues, not many go now even, go to Europe. And Juventus the Italian league was where it was at, and he was the guy in his first season there who, like, there's great footage of when he arrives. Like, he was chaired aloft by supporters when he arrived at the airport in Turin, and he scored the penalty that won them the league.
That's right.
Knowing he'd be sold.
Knowing he'd be sold. This was the second season because Platini, they had a foreigners rule, and he you
can only have two.
He was regarded as the extra foreigner because they had Boniek as well. And he scored the penalty. He took the responsibility, even though he knew he'd be out the door to be his last act for Juventus. But I remember I taught English in Bologna in Italy in 1990, and Liam used to be on TV quite a lot because he had fluent Italian. And in the build-up to the World Cup, he was still really popular. This was nearly 10 years on from his time.
As a pundit?
Yeah, as a pundit. And
BBC used him that year too.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons people warmed him because... the famous quote that Ian Rush, when he went to Juventus, it was like being in a foreign country, which I think he claims now he never said. But generally, players in the British leagues never bothered learning the language. Like I'm not sure Gareth Bale has much Spanish, and he's been there a long time.
No. That's the word.
Yeah.
Aaron Ramsey, though, in fairness, has thrown himself into it by all accounts.
Is he?
Yeah, that was one of the great.
That
was one of the great things about Aidan McGeady. Like there's footage, you'll see them on YouTube. There's footage of Aidan McGeady doing interviews in Russian, which he had the challenge of learning the Cyrillic alphabet as well. Like it was particularly challenging.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Brady does that because that has the makings of a great documentary, and it's a one-off indulgence of nostalgia, and at least it'll be there for posterity. Like, can we not sell this to him?
Yeah, and I think there's
Liam, if you're listening.
Yeah, and I think there's a thing as well, Joe, that because time moves on, a lot of people see Liam now. Liam is whatever he is, 50, probably 56 or maybe late 50, probably around 60 now.
60s,
yeah. And so a lot of people don't remember. They just know this guy in RT, and they don't know what he did. Like I saw that around the Giles documentary. Was it called Football Man or whatever? Like they had incredible footage of John at his peak, and you could see, wow, this guy was a fantastic footballer. For the younger generation, they just know him as a pundit, and to remind people of where these guys came from, of what they used to do.
Well, with Brady, the two pieces of footage that get used all the time are the Brazil goal and then that brilliant goal for Arsenal, where he curls the ball majestically into the top corner.
101 great goals.
You see, I've seen casually, just whatever, watching general football programs. Very little of Brady in Italy tends to be thrown out there too casually. But I presume the footage must be there.
Yeah, there's actually a very good YouTube package. It's about 10 minutes, and I think it's got all his goals, and it's got a lot of his best play. Like if anybody wants to dig it out. And like it stands out, it's he was incredibly skillful. He had great vision. Like he was
63 now.
63, is he? Okay.
He only ever played for. It wasn't as if he was playing for Juventus and then fell down. He was playing for
Sampdoria,
and then Ascoli before he went back to West Ham. So it wasn't as if he was plodding around playing for Munters and kind of playing every.
And he retired relatively young. Like he wasn't that old when he retired West Ham, from what I remember. I think he was probably 32, 33, was he?
Must have been.
He scored a fantastic goal for West Ham in his last season
to get them. Help get them promoted.
Or stay up. One of the two. I can't remember.
Okay, sold.
We're sold.
Commissioned.
Yeah.
So let's start the news round. Richie and Johnny Sexton. Andy Farrell had probably the longest day of their lives today.
Our Stephen Doyle was over in London for the Six Nations launch. Jonathan Sexton said at it that his recovery from a knee injury is ahead of schedule. The new Ireland captain is set to be fit for the opening Six Nations game with Scotland at the Aviva on Saturday week. And at that Six Nations launch today, Steve-O asked Sexton about settling into the role of captain.
It's a huge honour, you know what I mean, but I've been in around the leadership group. I've been, as a 10, you've got a lot of other responsibility in the team. So I've always carried a good bit of responsibility, and I don't mind that. There'll be a couple of differences. Being here today is one difference. Doing some extra media will be another. But other than that, I'll just try and be myself around the team. Obviously, the way I build relationships with the new faces will have to be a little bit different. I suppose as captain, you got to make them. Feel more welcome and thing. Not that I wouldn't have in the past, but just making a bigger effort. Obviously, being the go-between between the coaching staff and the leadership group, and between the leadership group and the players. All those little roles, but it'll be a little bit new. But I know how they work because I've been around for so long. And I'm just looking forward to it. Like I said, it's a massive honour, and where it becomes a bigger responsibility. But no, it's not a regret that I haven't got it, because. If I was the best man for the job with the other guys there, I would have got it. But, Joe went with Rory and Paulie before, and they were two brilliant captains that I played under, and before that was Brian. So lucky to have played under those three great captains.
Yeah, he sounds all very comfortable with it all. So we'll bring you the full Sexton chat and the full Andy Farrell chat in the next hour. There was a great picture from today.
I was about to mention this.
A good picture, whoever took it. I'm sure it's not as...
It was info, Laszlo, somebody. Okay. As the two Farrells, is it?
Yeah, I'm sure it's not as awkward or pregnant a moment as it looks when it's just a photo, but effectively you have the captains lined up alongside each other, as is normal for these photos, and for whatever reason, Andy Farrell is either leaving the lineup or joining the lineup, but he's given his son, the England captain, a pat. Yeah. And you've got Johnny Sexton and Alan Wynne-Jones standing beside Farrell, just eyes glued to this interaction, really kind of curious to see what the body language is. How are they getting on? I don't know. It's just
Owen Farrell is looking off the side. That could be literally a split second.
That's like Roger with his pockets for the Queen.
Yeah, but that's the magic of stills photography. Yeah, that is the magic.
Brad and Jen the other night.
Oh yeah, well, there's hope. Why can't you two just make it work?
You've been dying to off with this Sunday night, haven't you?
Something like that. So it's a great picture, though. I mean, the prospect of Farrell versus Farrell is kind of an amazing subplot to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Learning language, so important. Steve McManaman, still very popular in Madrid because he learned Spanish, says Emo.
Michael Robinson has gone on to make a career there, lived there since then. Yeah.
The Ian Rush line, says Paul and Cork, was a joke cracked by Kenny Dalglish, and Rush has never lived it down.
And yet still they sit side by side at every Liverpool game.
There's actually a very good Dalglish documentary that was out about 2 years ago. It came out around the same time as a Dalglish, as a Shankly one. And both of them were decent documentaries.
I mean, there should be so many more documentaries of English football.
But like Richie just mentioned one.
Owen Hand Years.
Owen Hand Years, which
in
is
charge
very
of Ireland would be brilliant. Just when you consider the whole Mickey Walsh thing over in Portugal, there's another guy who learned Portuguese and made a career for himself over there. To such a degree, he was told to stop talking about the referee's incident that cost Ireland place. The 86 World Cup, was it? Or possibly 82.
82, yeah.
Was told to stop talking about it by his Portuguese colleagues because he was getting their club sides in shit with referees.
thought the Giles documentary a couple of years ago was good.
Yeah, that was
well
excellent.
done. Yeah,
that was excellent.
Folks, the documentary Next Goal Wins about the American Samoa national team is one of the best
I've heard
football,
that one, yeah. I
football
haven't seen it, I've heard
documentaries
of
ever.
it, yeah.
Says Kev, I haven't.
Once Upon a Time about New York Cosmos as well. No, once in a lifetime.
Oh yeah,
New York Cosmos
very
is
good.
fantastic.
But it's good to see ideas that are a bit left field like that. Like, it's not a documentary, maybe it will be in time, but Owen O'Callaghan, who does stuff for the 42, he's writing a book on Roy Keane's early careers, I think around Cove and when he was doing the false course in Dublin and stuff, and he's talked to, and Rockman, he's talked to a lot of people for that. There's a fiction film being put together about Saipan, unfortunately. Whether we can go through that.
Dear, oh dear.
Imagine the casting even.
Who plays Dunphy?
Who plays Dunphy? Who plays Keane?
Somebody says Brady's nickname was Chippy because he used to carve out chances for teammates.
No, it was a fondness for chips.
He just liked chips, I think.
Yeah. When he went to London first at 15.
He was eating chips and someone said, we'll call you Chippy.
Yeah, it's like any young fella goes away and was never cooked. No, they're going to go the chipper.
Had a great record collection though. If that
he did,
photo is anything to go by.
Rory Gallagher, Thin Lizzy, Bob Dylan. Van, I think.
What a crap nickname. It's a big price to pay for having a bag of chips in front of someone. There's many a person who's gone to school. They did one small thing once, and then they had a nickname for life.
But in terms of Irish football nicknames, it's one of the best. Like it's not just O at the end or Y at the end. Like it's something different.
Yeah. So Adam Griggs has been talking as well.
Yeah, he was there too. Ireland's women have World Cup qualifiers to contend with later this year, and in part, head coach Adam Griggs is looking to use this Six Nations as the ideal preparation.
If we can start to perform in the Six Nations and get a bit of cohesiveness, that should lead into our summer program and through into those qualifiers. So you wouldn't say you're focusing on it too much at the moment. It's certainly about Scotland and probably Wales as well. Those home games in the Six Nations, we're really targeting a good start that'll get us off on the positive foot. You know, like we weren't happy with where we finished last year in the Six Nations, and there's a lot of players that are coming back who probably have a better experience of what the tournament is and what it's required to be successful in it. You know, we've had a young group, we've had a cycle of players retire after that World Cup, so there are younger players that have come through now, and it's really about making sure we perform for every game, and if we can get that right come Six Nations, and that hopefully will lead into those qualifiers.
Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, he says he hopes he can play again before the end of the season. He's been sidelined by a double stress fracture in his back sustained in last week's FA Cup replay with Wolves. There were fears that the injury could rule Rashford out of England's Euro 2020 campaign, but the striker tweeted to state he will play in the Premier League again this season. His side, Manchester United, can close the gap on fourth place Chelsea to 3 points tonight with a win at home to Burnley. There's an 8:15 start to this one. I'm stalling because I think the team news has just landed. It has. David De Gea starts in goal again for Manchester United. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Harry Maguire, Phil Jones is back in the centre of defence alongside Brandon Williams, and Nemanja Matic and Fred and Andreas Pereira are in midfield with Juan Mata and Daniel James either side of Anthony Martial. Meanwhile, Tottenham play host to Norwich City, the bottom side in the Premier League tonight. Hugo Lloris back between the posts for Spurs for the first time since early October. No Troy Parrott again in the Spurs squad, no Adam Ida in the Norwich squad either, and the other game tonight sees Leicester go up against West Ham.
Now, interesting interview on OTBAM this morning, our sports breakfast show every morning, and Anthony Moyles was on, and it seems like things are hotting up.
Yeah, this is after the Club Players Association said they're ready to adopt a militant strategy over GEA fixture calendar row. More than 3/4 of their members have voted in a survey to back a more aggressive approach from their executive, but strike action has been ruled out. 80% of CPA members also said they don't feel like they belong to the GEA. Executive member Anthony Moyles, as you mentioned, Joe, was on this morning's OTBAM.
I think strike is the one that would be way down the line, to be honest with you, and is one that, you know, as an executive we ruled out for the moment because well, there's a couple of reasons for it. You know, logistically wise, it would be actually pretty difficult to you know, kind of create, and you know, it's a situation where I think there's better ways to do it, to be honest with you. And I think the way we're going about it at the moment is the way forward. You know, we've touched base with a number of the main sponsors of, you know, the kind of the association's games, and we've just said to them, you know, to kind of think about the association that they're sponsoring and what it stands for at the moment, and you know how it is I suppose servicing its customers, who are, you know, people in the community, and who are you know, people who are involved in the GAA, and if they can kind of stand over that and not be willing to ask them questions about, well, actually, you know, is this a base that's happy? Is this a base that's not frustrated? Is this a base that's not dwindling before our eyes, all the way from inter-county level down to you know, playing for your club?
So there we are, maybe talking to sponsors, which will spice things up a bit.
Yeah. Who knows how this will pan out? You know, who knows? Because, you know, there is, Joe Brawley mentioned it last week, and you hear quite a lot of people say this, that eventually an inter-county season should be just 4 months and the rest given to clubs, and how how that would impact on even media coverage would be remarkable. Like, there would be so much things to factor in.
Would the popularity of the game suffer without that kind of showcase?
Yeah,
for more
because you know, no matter what people say about clubs, I don't think it has the same appeal. I think, you know, it's obviously very important, but in terms of people reading or, you know, listening to commentaries or watching, I don't think it's a...
Well, 1 million people watched the finals. Who watched on Sunday just gone?
Yeah.
Inter-county versus club.
And well, you see the crowd as well. There was 26,000 there?
There must be a way to accommodate a longer season than 4 months and still have the club game functioning reasonably well. There
Well, like the calendar is, like Sean Moran had a very good piece in the Irish Times this week about it, but the way the Under-20 Championship now has been moved from the summer back now in on top of the leagues and the Sigerson and the Fitzgibbon, and the way it's just become very messy, because that grade now, because people stay in school longer, it impacts on kids at school, and there's a dispensation you can get. It's quite complicated, but it's just become absolute chaos. There was no thought put into it. And that's the thing with a lot of things with GA, because there's actually, I guarantee you...
Don't drag us down.
Very quickly.
No,
like
this needs to be so quick, it's unbelievable.
But it will be very quick.
It needs to be incredibly interesting.
No, be very quick, because I'd never thought of this. Hugh McFadden from Donegal brought this up at a press conference yesterday, about how straight away people have figured out how to cheat the advanced mark rule.
That there was a game. Sorry, I apologise. I thought you were going to be talking about fixtures. The mark rule, I'm very interested.
Yeah, the advanced mark rule, because everybody's going to be given out of our adapter next weekend, I guarantee you. But he pointed out to an incident in the Sligo Sigerson Cup game against Letterkenny last weekend, and the ball was kicked from inside the 45-yard metre line, which means you can't call a mark. But the player called it anyway. And when the defenders see the arm up, the mark called, they back off because they think the mark has been called. But the guy was just chancing his arm, literally chancing his arm. So you get a free shot. And there's nothing against the forward doing that, as far as I can see in the rule. Like, straight away, people look to exploit these things. And it seems to be full of holes. I think it's going to be very, very messy.
Right. And the rule is, by the way, the ball has to be kicked from which line?
Outside the 45. And that's just to travel 20 metres.
So how that is going to be judged?
Yeah.
I couldn't think of a more difficult rule.
No, as Hugh McFadden says...
referee on the pit.
And as Hugh McFadden says, in a club game where you can barely see lines on a lot of pitches, particularly if it's a muddy day or whatever, how the hell are you supposed to judge it? No. It's going to be chaos. So and it could cost you, say, relegation for your club, or getting into a county fine.
So how confident would you be, genuinely, how confident would you be to adjudicate at first glance while you're also moving?
Yeah.
18-metre kick versus 20 metre.
And you could be running, you don't know where you're running from, the angle. You could be running behind the players, kick the ball, or running beside him, or, it's impossible.
Fun and games ahead there. I look forward to a summer of asking pundits, did you think it went 20 metres? By the way, London Independent, 1992, no less. JP's really gone into the archives here.
All right.
My parents brought me over, and they were treated well. That was about all. And my mother, she told Arsenal's chief scout that I'd be okay as long as I was given lots of chips. So the chief scout said, we'll call him Chippy. In that 1 second, I was given a nickname which has lasted throughout my 8 years at Arsenal. It's strange. He says, I was never called that in Ireland or anywhere else. I migrated into Ireland ultimately.
JP might be able to get the pic very quickly and put it up on screen for people watching on YouTube, whatever. But there's a great pic when they first went over of Stapleton, John O'Leary, Stapleton, David O'Leary, Liam Brady, and Johnny Murphy, who was later scrum half for Ireland.
Who's that standing beside Johnny Murphy?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's another very good doc idea. But they were the four of those went on over together. All four played for Ireland, but one ended up playing for Ireland in rugby.
Yeah, amazing.
It's a remarkable story.
Last couple of stories, Rich.
Yeah, we mentioned the Sigerson Cup there. There's going to be a first-time finalist of that competition decided this evening. Neither IT Carlow nor Michael Murphy's Letterkenny IT have made the college's football decider before in their history. They're not long underway in Inniskeen, where IT Carlow lead Letterkenny by 4 points to 2. The other semi-final has just blown up, and DCU have comfortably beaten UCD this evening in that one. 114 to 3 points was the latest score I had to hand a moment ago. It's just disappeared off the screen. When it comes back, to get it for you. Early UCD advanced to the Fitzgibbon Cup quarter-finals, courtesy of a 419 to 218 win over GMIT, and not long underway on Santry Avenue, where Trinity are up against DCU. And Laois footballer Brendan Quigley has retired from intercounty football. The Timahoe midfielder has been part of the O'Meara senior panel since 2006 and was nominated for an All-Star in 2012. New Laois boss Mike Quirk says Quigley always gave his best for the jersey and thanked him for his huge effort for his county. While teen sensation Coco Gauff has set up a mouth-watering third-round encounter with defending Australian Open champion Naomi Osaka. 15-year-old Gauff beat Romania's Sorana Cirstea today in 3 sets, while Osaka dispatched Zhang Seisei in straights. Gauff fell in straight sets to Osaka at the US Open third round back in August, but the American says she's feeling pressure-free this time around.
Yeah, I think in general, my mindset has always been nothing to lose, really, even in juniors. Even though I was ranked pretty high in juniors and I was technically supposed to win, then I still felt like I had nothing to lose, so I still feel that now. And I think my mindset just is I'm going to fight, and if I lose, the world's not going to end, and I'm going to have another match in maybe a week or so. So I think it's just less pressure and to win. And I feel like it's for me, I'm just not trying to win so much, but trying to play my best tennis on the court. And winning comes with that if I play good.
15.
Do you want to hear the answer she gave after that? She was asked about the show of sportsmanship from Osaka at the US Open. She has a head on her shoulders of a 45-year-old. She's incredible. Absolutely. Whoever's advising her is doing a bang-up job.
It's impressive. Serious brain power there. So that is our news round for this evening. Short break. We're back with our Rory Best interview. That's next.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
Following the 2019 sellout success of The Cripple of Inishmaan, Gaiety Productions presents Martin McDonagh's brutally funny dark comedy, The Lieutenant of Inishmore. Set in 1993, leading provo Mad Porrick returns from the north to find the worst has happened back home.